I've seen so many skilled barbers mess up haircuts, piss off clients, and in almost every case, it was due to this one skill here, consultations. This video is probably not going to get a lot of views. It's probably going to, if this is part of a course, this is probably going to be the video that gets skipped the most. But it's arguably, in my opinion, the most important skill that any barber or anybody that works with hair can have, period. Because it doesn't really matter how skilled you are. If what you give the client doesn't match with what they asked for, they won't come back, period. Even if you think it was a beautiful haircut, but if it wasn't the haircut they asked for, you're never going to see them again. And so this is actually, I think, an easier skill to learn than being able to give a good haircut, give a good skin fade or a beard trim or whatever. Because all you have to do is ask a few questions, which we're going to go over, and you can get on the same page with your client. Because ultimately, it doesn't matter what you think about the haircut. It doesn't matter how good you think the fade was. All that matters is that the client was happy and that they got what they wanted. So we're going to go over every single tactic that I know about so that you can give the most thorough consultations and that your clients will be happy. And if you don't know who I am, my name is Alex Jermelo. I own House of Shapes Barbershop. I've been a barber since 2014. I've done thousands and thousands of haircuts. And I've trained dozens, if not hundreds of barbers. So I've seen what works, and I've definitely seen what doesn't work. So in this video, I'm going to try to condense 10 plus years of knowledge so that I can save you the pain of what me and my barbers had to go through. So I think a good place to start would be to think about, what are we trying to get out of the consultation? So there's a few things, and you can actually, if you do it right, you can actually use the consultation to set yourself up for success in the future. So what do I mean by that? So one of the things that helps put more money in your pocket as a barber is getting people to come back more frequently and booking their next appointment for them, what we call rebooking. So they get their haircut today. Before they leave the shop, you book their next appointment for them. They are rebooked for their next visit, or some people call it pre-booking. But you can actually start and plant the seed of that process in the consultation simply by asking how long it's been since your last haircut. So we're gonna write these questions down. And these questions aren't gonna be in any particular order. So you don't have to do them in the order that I'm listing out. I'm just put down everything I know on this paper, and then you can figure out the best order for you. So we're gonna start out with these three right here. We covered this one. How long has it been since your last haircut? And you can also rephrase this to how many weeks has it been since your last haircut, or how many months has it been? A lot of people don't know the answer to this, but you can use the answer to this question in multiple ways. So, for example, when it comes to rebooking, you can use the answer to this question to plant the first seed. And there's only two ways to respond to the answer that they give you. So let's say somebody, is getting a skin fade. And you know as a barber that a skin fade, you can come in every week to get that redone. You can, maybe 2 weeks, that might be pushing it, 3. So let's just say you think a skin fade should be every 1 to 2 weeks. Sometimes I like to give people a range. And this client who's asking for a skin fade, he says that his last haircut was 8 weeks ago. So probably going to be pretty overgrown. But I would also take that as a red flag, which we're going to cover later. But let's say it's been 8 weeks. He's asking you for a skin fade. Well, you know as a barber that 8 weeks is way too long to wait to get your next haircut. So not that they have to do it, but you can make that recommendation and say something like, well, 8 weeks is a little long. I would recommend, 1 to 2 weeks to maintain this look. And if maybe 3, if you're, that would be kind of pushing it. And so you use that as an opportunity to educate the client, because a lot of them don't know. Some of them may be limited by budget or whatever, but it doesn't do any harm to hey, I understand it's been 8 weeks since your last haircut, but in order to maintain this look, probably you could do every week, you could do every 2 weeks, maybe 3 to push it. And then what I would do is I would bring up another point, and that's my opportunity to plant the first seed with rebooking, which is, if you want, if you have trouble finding a spot online, we can set you up with your next one before you leave so that you don't have to worry about it. Boom. First seed has been planted for rebooking, and then you drop it. Like, you can bring it up later throughout the haircut, but that's your first opportunity to plant the seed with rebooking, is right there in the consultation. And the other scenario is, same client, different scenario, but same client, they're getting a skin fade. You ask them how long it's been since their last haircut, and they say it's been 2 weeks. So in this case, I would take that as, that's pretty good. Like, that's the right interval, right? So then you can use that as opportunity to reinforce that behavior and say, that's perfect, man. You should keep that up. You could do every week, but 2 weeks is perfect. So then in either scenario, no matter how they answer that question, then use the response to that question to educate them. So if it's been too long, whatever the answer is, and whatever the haircut is, if it's been too long since their last haircut, you can respond by educating them on what is the proper haircut interval. If it's been the right amount of time, then you can reinforce that and be like, that's perfect, keep doing that, And then with the client that it has been the right amount of time, like, so it's been 2 weeks since your last haircut, that's perfect. We should get you set up with your next one before you leave so that you can keep that interval going. Boom. Either scenario, you are educating, you're either reinforcing that there was a good decision to wait that long since their last haircut, or you educate by recommending a better interval. And then in either scenario, you plant the seed for rebooking. When barbers are struggling with rebooking, in 99% of the cases, it's because they're not doing this. They're waiting until they get to the front desk, to the checkout or whatever, and that's the first time they bring up, hey, do you want to set up your next one? And by the time you get to that point, it's usually too late. You want to plant the seeds for rebooking as early as possible, starting right from the consultation. So that's how to use the answer to this question of how long it's been since your last haircut to plant the seed for rebooking. But the answer to this question can also give you an idea of how much to take off. So if you're working with a client that you're going to be needing to do scissor work, they have straighter hair, curlier hair, or wavy hair, and they don't have an idea of how much they want to take off, you can use the answer to this question of how long it's been since their last haircut to give you kind of a rough guide on how much you need to be taking off. And you can also use the answer to this question to help avoid giving them a bad haircut. So how do you use this to determine how long it's been? Well, I don't know about you guys, but I read the textbook, the Barber textbook, when I was in school, and I remember seeing something that said hair grows roughly about a half an inch a month. So if it's been 4 weeks or a month since their last haircut, I know that I'm probably safe with starting at about half an inch to take off, right? So that's a great thing to know. And then if it's been 2 months, then you can probably safe with taking about an inch off, right? But a caveat to that would be maybe the haircut was not, maybe last time they felt like it was too long, so then you'd want to take more off, or they felt like it was too short last time, so you'd want to take less off. But other than that, it's been a really good guide for me, and one of the best things I got from that Barber textbook was knowing, okay, hair grows on average about half an inch a month. So if it's been 4 weeks, half an inch needs to come off. If it's been 2 weeks, quarter inch. And everybody thinks that their hair grows faster than normal, by the way. And some people do have higher than average hair growth, but for the most cases, this works like 90% of the time, where half an inch is like usually enough. And then you can always take off more. That's one thing I tell clients, like, let's start with this. We can always take off more. I'd rather do it again than go too short. But how this can be a red flag is, let me just write it over here. We're going to talk, since we brought it up a couple times, we're going to talk about a couple red flags that can come up in the consultation that can literally save the haircut. And one of the things that me myself have been through, and that I've seen plenty of barbers go through, is not identifying these red flags when they come up. So one of the things could be conflicting information. So what's an example of that? Well, let's say this same client, right? He's asking you for a skin fade, okay? As a barber, we all tend to be on the same page, I think, at least in my experience, when it comes to what a skin fade is. So basically going all the way down to the skin, completely bald at the bottom, no stubble, no nothing. It's smooth to the touch, okay?
Hey, if you're finding this helpful and you want my help personalizing and applying this to your situation, then go to skool.com/barber-mastermind and join my community. It's full of other barbers and hairstylists that are looking to make more money just like you. Hope to see you there. Now back to the video.
You have to remember, and this is probably one of the most important points I'll make in this entire video, in most cases, you are not cutting another barber's hair. So they don't understand the terminology the same way that we do as barbers. We went to school for this. We studied this. We were tested on these things. The clients don't know, in a lot of cases, what they're asking for unless they were trained by their previous barber or by you. So if somebody asks you for a skin fade as a barber, it is your responsibility to ask some more clarifying questions to make sure that that's actually what they want. And then you can do a test patch to confirm, that way you don't ruin the haircut. But here's an example of a conflicting information might be, if somebody asks you for a skin fade, and then I'm like, okay, cool, skin fade. Let's say I didn't ask the clarifying questions, because this has actually happened to me. Somebody asked me for a skin fade one day, and I'm like, okay, and I just was about to jump straight into it. And then he's like, and then I would like the back squared off. And I'm like, wait a minute, that doesn't make sense, because if you're getting a skin fade, there's not going to be any hair to square off. It's going to be bald. So I was so happy that I caught that, and then it turned into a lesson that anytime I train barbers on consultations, always look for conflicting information like that. So it turned out that that client didn't get what we would consider a skin fade. What he actually wanted was like a 2 or a 3 on the sides. Here's why some people might ask for skin fades and not actually want a skin fade. It's because they saw something on the internet saying that this is what they should ask for, or they think that because they can see the skin or their scalp through their hair, that it means a skin fade. Now, we as barbers know that that's not right, but it doesn't matter, right? Our responsibility is to make sure that what they ask for and what they get are the same. That's what creates happy, loyal clients. So you want to look for conflicting information like that. If somebody says one thing and then immediately conflicts that with another thing that they say, that should be a red flag. But I also think that you should be asking clarifying questions. So maybe I'll put that over here. An example of a clarifying question that I would ask if somebody asked me for a skin fade, I kind of alluded to it earlier. I actually got this technique by going to a restaurant, and after about the 100th time of somebody asking me about this, I realized there's probably a reason why they do this. So if you've ever gone to a restaurant and asked for steak, the next thing that they usually ask you is, how do you like it cooked? The options usually are rare, medium, well, well done. And then once I say, let's say I say medium, okay? They almost always say, so little pink in the center, like cool pink's middle center or whatever they say. I'm like, yeah, that's fine. And so I started to pick up on that, and I was like, so they always clarify that what I asked for and what it means to them are the same. And I started using that in the barbershop. So when somebody asks me for a skin fade, I don't just say, oh, yeah, sure, no problem, and start cutting their hair, because I've had so many clients that I've cut that when I actually did a skin fade on them, they were like, whoa, that's way shorter than I thought. So after about the 100th time of me doing that to somebody, I started to realize maybe I should ask a couple more questions to make sure that they actually are asking for a skin fade. Now, if you've cut this person before, then go ahead and do it. If you've never cut this person before, I would always ask, so skin, that means all the way down to the skin, no stubble at all, completely smooth to the touch, baby smooth, like using different words so that they understand that what they're asking for is that the hair is completely gone. There's going to be nothing left. Because once it's gone, we can't put it back. And if they say yes, then go ahead and do it. But I would still, if it's a new client, I would still do a test patch, which basically all a test patch is you would take your clippers and maybe do like 1 or 2 guards higher than what you think they're going to ask for, and just cut their sideburn, just a little area, and stop right there. And then you hand them a mirror and say, is that short enough? And if they say yes, then you keep going, right? Some people won't be sure, and then you can do a little bit more and show them again. But 90% of the cases I've seen, that's usually enough of an idea to let them know, like, that's a good length to start with. But ultimately, they're not going to know till the whole haircut's done. And you might have to do it again. But if you do the test patch, this actually can help prevent you from doing the entire haircut again. Just cut a little bit of area on the sideburn, stop right there, show them the mirror, and ask them, how's that length? And if they're cool with it, then you keep going, right? And if that can help prevent you having to do the whole haircut again, because if you cut a little bit on the sideburn, and let's say it's too long, well, now you didn't have to do the whole haircut again. You can just go to the next guard lower, cut a little bit more, and show them again until you find the right length. Where if you don't do that, you might get to all the way through the haircut, and now they're like, can you go a little bit shorter? And now you're having to do 2 haircuts, right? And it really doesn't matter if you're going to charge them again or not. Like we don't normally do that. We don't normally charge somebody again if they change their haircut, and we have to do but now time-wise, if you're fully booked and you have to do the whole thing again on this client, I mean, you're going to be way behind now because you have to redo the whole haircut almost. So asking a clarifying question like, okay, somebody asked me for a skin fade. Okay, you want smooth to the touch, bald, no hair at all, no stubble, nothing. And you have to really read their body language, because if they don't seem sure, they're like, yeah, I guess, yeah. Then what I would do, and this is a huge time-saving hack right here. So if somebody asks me for a skin fade, in about like 50% of the cases, I can save myself so much time. If they don't seem sure, what I will do is I will take like a half, which is my clipper guard with the lever all the way open, and just cut a little bit of length right there, do the test patch, show them, and they're cool with that in a lot of cases. I just save 10 minutes because depending on your tool setup and your efficiency as a barber, just that act of going from bald with the shaver to like a half or a 1 takes like 10, 15 minutes by itself. So if you do a test patch and somebody asks for a skin fade, and you start with like a half or 0, and they're cool with that, you just save 10 minutes. So if they're not sure that they actually want a skin fade, don't just jump into the skin fade. Start with like a half or a 0, show them, they might be cool with that, and then you just save 10 minutes off the haircut. So that's one of the ways that doing a thorough consultation can actually save you time. And you just ask one additional question, right? Do the test patch. Here, so do the test patch. You can use this on almost any haircut. Whether they ask for a skin fade or not, it doesn't matter. It could be like, I'm not sure if I want a 3 or a 4 on my sides. Well, start with a 4, do a test patch. If they say the 4 is too long, you just save 10, 15 minutes. Then you just switch to the 3, cut just the sideburn area, show them, they're cool with that. Now you do the rest, and you just save some time. 99% of the clients, in my experience, really appreciate when you ask them more questions. And one of the compliments that I hear a lot when I cut clients is, wow, nobody's ever asked me that before. Well, first of all, that's sad. But the reason why I do that, if I've never cut their hair before, I'm really going to play it safe because I want them to come back. So if all I have to do is ask them a couple more questions, to me, that's worth it, right? So then, of course, you want to know, the next thing is, what do they want done? So are they getting a haircut, beard trim, both? If they just booked a haircut but they have a beard and you have time to do that, this is your opportunity to do an upsell. So what do they want done? They just want a haircut? I see you want to get your beard cleaned up while you're here? That's an opportunity to upsell. But figuring out what they want Barbers are generally pretty good at this, right? Like, what did you want done today? Where they mess up is they don't ask these other things. They don't do the test patch. They don't ask the clarifying questions. They don't look for conflicting information. But you obviously have to figure out what they want done. But the thing here is, I would say, is avoid haircut names. So what I mean by that, this has gotten me in so much trouble, and I've seen so many barbers mess up a perfectly good haircut because, keep in mind, like I said in the beginning, we're not cutting barbers. Just because they mention a certain haircut name doesn't mean that they know what that means, right? So I don't even pay attention to haircut names. All I care about is how short do you want it and how you style it. That's really it. That's what we're trying to figure out, because that's what we need to do our jobs. We need to know how short do you want it, how do you usually style it, how often do you get it cut, and what kind of product do you use. That's it. I don't care what you call a haircut name. Some people know that a skin fade is called a skin fade. Some people know that it's a flat top. It's, a comb over with a hard part or whatever. Like, don't go off haircut names. I don't care what it's called, because if you just automatically assume that the client knows what they're asking you for, and then you start doing it and it's not what they want, then you just lost that client. It doesn't matter how good the haircut was. If you gave them a great Caesar cut, but they asked for a comb over, they don't give a shit how great that Caesar was. They asked for a comb over, right? So don't go off haircut names. I've seen so many barbers mess this up. Another example of a clarifying question you could ask is, if, let's say they ask you for a comb over, and it doesn't really matter what I think. I think it looks better with comb overs. I guess it depends on the haircut, but some people have comb overs and they like it shaved all the way up to that part. Let's say I have a part here. They want it shaved. So there's no ledge right here, and there's nothing to comb down and actually part. Where some people like it comb over, where it's combed over, and then there's a ledge here, there's a part here, and then there's a ledge. I've seen so many barbers just go in there and just shave off that whole ledge, and the clients were like, what the fuck? Like, that's way too short. So ask them, like, if they're getting you can ask no matter what type of haircut. I think it's better to annoy clients with questions than it is to just assume. That's where we get into trouble as barbers. If we're just assuming we know what they want, instead of asking a couple more questions, all you have to do is figure out, what is it that they want? And if you're not 100% sure, just ask. You only have to do this the first time you cut somebody. After that, the length of the consultation is like so much shorter. So, but the first time you cut somebody, you should definitely be going through this entire process. So don't go off haircut names. It's going to get you in trouble. After you finish the haircut, maybe you can tell them what it's called, but don't assume that they know what they're asking for, because again, they're not barbers. The next thing is one of the fastest ways to make money as a barber, as a barbershop, is by selling products. So you can just ask them, what products are you using right now? And if they're using something that's not damaging their hair, just like with the rebooking scenario, you can reinforce that and say, your hair seems really healthy, seems like that product's working really well for you. You should probably keep using that, right? Or if their hair feels dry, or they have some kind of skin condition or whatever, and you think that their product might be aggravating it, or you think there's something better that you have in the shop, that's your opportunity to bring it up. So what kind of products do you normally use in your hair? And if you ask it these ways, it doesn't seem salesy, right? But what kind of products do you use in your hair? So that's your opportunity to bring up products, because if they're using something that's damaging their hair, that's your opportunity to let them know that, hey, I think this would actually be better for you. We have some here in the shop. I can put some in your hair at the end of the haircut if you want. That's it, right? And if they like it, then they buy it. But if you're having trouble selling products, it's probably because you're not bringing it up in the consultation and you're not using it in your hair. Like, literally, that's like, you can increase your product sales simply by just doing those two things. Asking them what they're using in their hair, and then making a recommendation for something that's better that you have in the shop. And then actually putting it in their hair, right? And then while you're putting it in their hair, you're showing them how to use it. so that way they can do the same thing at home. Because a lot of people buy products thinking that they don't work, where the problem is actually that the barber didn't show them how to use it when they were styling their hair. They didn't explain what was in the product, right? And why it's better than what they might be getting from the dollar store. So ask them what products they're using in their hair. That will set you up for success with retail. And at the very least, I mean, think of it as educating your client. You're not trying to sell them. So if you don't rebook them, fine. But at least they know now. Like, this is how often I should get my haircut. Same thing with the product. Like, they don't have to buy the product. As long as they leave knowing, hey, maybe I should stop shampooing my hair with that cheap stuff that I've been getting from Walgreens, and start using something better instead. In my opinion, if they leave educated, then you did your job. Whether they buy something, I think it has more to do with how well you do this. Not everybody's going to buy a product. Not everybody's going to rebook, but you will naturally get better at rebooking. You will naturally see those numbers increase, and you will naturally sell more product sales if you're consistent about this, bringing it up. And these are 3 questions you can ask with every single client. Now, if it's somebody that you've cut before, then you just say, so it's been about 2 weeks, right, since your last cut, since the last time I seen you. You can look in their history, or you could just be like, what's new since last week? It's only been a week, right? There's different ways you can ask these questions depending on who you're talking to. So if you cut somebody before, instead of what do they want done, you should know what they want done. But you could ask them, right? You can say, hey, so last time we did a number 2 on the side with some scissors on top. Are we doing the same thing? Then you get right into the haircut. So you can still verify, because some people are very consistent with their haircuts and they'll be getting the same thing for years. But some people change it up every now and then. So this has gotten me in trouble by just same thing as the last time. Yep. Oh, and then you just jump right into it. And they're like, actually, I wanted to change this up, and now it's too late. So even if I've cut their hair 100 times, I'm still going to try to ask them, all right, so are we doing the skin fade again? All the way down to skin, no stubble at all? Still taking half an inch off the top? Like verifying, you don't have to, it's more like verifying as opposed to like going through this whole process again. And then you can ask them, if you sold them a product last time, you can ask them, how's that product working for you? Think of different ways you can use these questions. Don't just be limited to the way I wrote them here. You can change this based on the scenario of who you're talking to. So if it's a repeat client that you've seen before, then you would switch it up a little bit, but you can still do all of these things. Here's another red flag for you. So one of the best questions you can ask, and I got this from one of my instructors in Barber School 10 plus years ago, was if it's your first time cutting somebody, or even if you were the last one that cut their hair, you can ask them, is there anything you didn't like about your last haircut? And this is one of the most powerful questions you can ask, because it kind of opens the door for them to tell you exactly how to cut their hair and what they value. Because I've literally had clients that came to me who left their last barber simply because the last barber could never get their sideburns even. So I asked the client, so what didn't you like about your last haircut, or your last barber, or your last barbershop? You can change the type of questioning here. But he was like, the guy never could get my sideburns even. Every time I went, I have to go home and fix it myself. So you'd be surprised at the reasons why people will stop coming to you. So if you can just ask them what they didn't like about their last haircut, even if you were the one that did it, you can change it like, is there anything that you want to switch up from last time? It's a repeat client, I like it to ask them that way. Like, is there anything you want to switch up from last time that we did? So all you have to do then, once you know the answer to that question, is don't do that. So if the client tells you that the last barber could never get their sideburns even, just make sure that their sideburns are even, and just try to avoid that mistake that the last barber made, even if it was you. One of the things too, especially when it comes to repeat clients, is sometimes I'm tempted to like just jump into like, the conversation that you guys had last time that I cut their hair. But you don't want to do that, because I can stretch your haircut times out. So here's another time-saving tip that you can do right from the consultation, and it's simply just get right into the consultation. Like, even if they start down that path of like, hey man, you remember the last time I told you about so-and-so? You'd be like, hold that thought. are we doing the same thing as last time? You know, skin fade, no stubble, you know, comb over, hard part, etc. They're like, yeah, same thing. Then you can get into the whatever you guys were talking about last time, pick up from last time. But I've seen so many barbers, including myself, like we just want to get right into the conversation that we had with our clients last time, which there's nothing wrong with that. But you got to do it in the right order. So first thing you want to do is figure out what they need. That way you can start cutting their hair, and then you can get into whatever the hell you guys want to talk about for the rest of the haircut. But the first thing you need to do is figure out, what do they want? Is it the same thing the last time? And then you don't want to assume it's the same. You want to verify, say it out loud, and then like, yep, cool. Okay, now tell me about how the wedding went, whatever, you know? So always get right into the consultation, especially with repeat clients, especially if it's somebody that you've been cutting for years, because you were going to get so distracted and you might not have a chance to cut their hair because they're telling you about everything that happened to them since the last time you cut their hair. And now you're 5 minutes in, you haven't even started cutting their hair yet because you're just waiting for them to finish their thought. Another big, maybe consider this a clarifying question, but this is so powerful. And so when you're asking somebody what they want done, so I don't know about you guys, but I fall behind every now and then. And sometimes I'm cleaning my tools as I'm doing a consultation. So I'm not really like directly looking at the client. I will be cleaning my stuff because I was running behind. And that's one of the things that you can just cut out is, you know, when you're trying to catch up, you know, you don't have to have all your stuff clean when you bring your client back. You can clean it during the consultation. But the problem with doing that is that the client might feel like you're not paying attention to them. So what I like to do, and this also helps me remember what they're getting done, is when they're telling me what they want done, but I'm ready to start, before I start cutting their hair, I repeat it back to them. So let's say they ask me for a number 4 on the sides, and they like to comb their hair forward, so they want to take, you know, 2 inches off the top, and they like their neckline rounded, etc., right? So before I start cutting their hair, I'm going to say, all right, so we're going to do a number 4 on the sides and back, take it up about to here, medium, and we're going to round your neckline off, and you like to comb your hair forward, and then we're going to take about 2 inches off the top. Is that right? So simply just repeating the haircut does 2 things. It lets the client know that you were listening and paying attention, and then it helps me as the barber actually remember, because I'm saying it. I wasn't just hearing them say it. Me saying it out loud, for me at least, is going to help me remember so that I'm less likely to do the wrong thing. So always repeat even with repeat clients, you can use the same thing as last time. So a number 2, whatever on the sides, trim the top. Okay, then you get into the haircut. But especially with new clients, repeating what you heard back to them, so powerful. You can do all the things on this list, and the client still could not be sure what they want for their haircut, and you could not be sure as a barber. So one of my rules has been, we could always take off more. Like, I'd rather do the whole haircut again than go too short. So when in doubt, always leave it longer. So if the client's not sure whether they want a 2 or 3 on the sides, start with a 3, and then show them. Do a test patch, start with a 3, and then if that's too long, then go down to a 2. Right, but don't do the whole haircut. Do just do their sideburn, or you could do their neckline. Some barbers do that. You can do a test patch on just the back of their neck, especially if they're going to taper it anyways. Turn them around, hand in the mirror, and start with a longer guard. Or if you're using scissors, start with less. Take off a safe amount. Show them, and if they're cool with that, then you proceed with the rest of the haircut. But never just assume, especially if it's a new client. Because generally especially the plastic guards are pretty universal, but every now and then, you know, you're going to get a client in your chair who their last barber used the metal blades, or for whatever reason, the length might be different. Because this has happened to me, and I learned the hard way, but sometimes clients have a beard trimmer at home, and the lengths are completely different than what we use in the barbershop. So I messed up clients in the past because they would say, I usually use the number 1 on my beard at home. And I'm like, okay, fine. And then I did a number, like our number 1. And they're like, holy shit, that's way too short. And I'm like, So that not all guards are universal. So if you're not 100% sure, if the client's not sure about what the length they're asking for, even if they are sure, if it's your first time cutting them, I would leave it longer and just do a little test patch. That way they can see, like, this is what your number 2 looks like versus what their number 2 looks like at home. And if they're happy with it, then keep going. Another technique you can use is if the client, especially if there's like a language barrier there, pulling up pictures either on your phone or you can ask the client if they have any pictures of their haircut will lead to a lot more accurate haircuts. So I'm also going to throw notes in there because that's very, very powerful. But first we'll start with pictures, or you can do videos as well. If a client has a picture or a video of a haircut that they like, and that's probably one of the best ways to ensure that they're going to get what they want is by showing you that. And if they can't find one, you can pull up one on your phone and show them. And then this is one of the easiest hacks to make sure that your clients are getting consistent haircuts. And it's such a value add, and it only takes 30 seconds. At the end of the haircut, if they seem happy with their haircut, take a picture with your phone or their phone or video and just send it to them, right? So this does 2 things. You get content out of it that you can post, and then you send it to them and you say, hey, just show this to me next time. That way I know exactly what to do. So that would be for a picture. And then you can do a 30-second video where you just walk around the client or you spin them around and you just explain out loud what you did. This is so, so powerful. I've never seen anybody do this. But you can take that, you can also send that video to the client, walk around them, explain what you did out loud to the phone. You get content out of it, and they can show that to you next time. And you want to keep it short. The first couple times you do this, and they might end up being over a minute. But now when I do these videos, I mean, they're less than 30 seconds. And the clients find it really, really valuable. And it sets you up for success next time. And you get content out of it. So take pictures and videos, send them to the client, so that way when they come back, they know they can just show you, just like last time, just like this, right? And then once you figure out how they like their haircut, take notes. If you're not taking notes, you are really making your job a lot harder, because maybe you can remember everybody's haircut, and if you can, that's great. But they may not come back to you next time. Maybe they're going to come back to somebody else in the chair next to you, and that person's not going to have any idea. So take notes on your clients. If you can, tie some pictures and videos to it. But once you figure out how they like their haircut, write it down in the system, save it. That way you don't have to try to remember it. And when it comes to notes, here's a couple tips. To be as detailed as possible. Don't use abbreviations. Don't make it so that you're the only one that could understand the notes. Like, don't put NL instead of neckline, because you might know what that means, but everybody else might not be like, I don't know what that means. So don't make the notes so that only you can decipher them. And then you can also put other stuff in the notes, which is what I like to do, like personal stuff, like what they do for work. Do they have kids? Where are they from? Do they have any things coming up? Like, make sure to ask them how the wedding went next time. When you're remembering more about your clients than just how they got their haircut, that goes a long way with retention, because they start to feel like you really care, because you should. And you can use your system to help you remember these things. You don't have to remember everybody's name, where they work, etc., where they're from. Your system can remember that. You just need to remember to put it in there and kind of download it from your brain into the system. So notes are probably one of the most underutilized things that I see in our industry. So if you're not using, all of the barbers that work in my barbershop that have the highest retention are using notes, without exception. So that should tell you how important notes are. If you want to get to 90+% client retention like some of my barbers are at, use notes. This is probably one of the more powerful tips that I will make in this video, because you're going to have those clients that just have absolutely no idea what they want. And they're just like, just do whatever you want. I mean, I hate it when people tell me that, right? But I think I was getting, I don't know, maybe I was tired one day or I was frustrated, and I meant it as a joke, and thankfully he took it the right way. But I had a client one day who was just like, just do whatever you want. You're the professional. That's what they say. You're the professional. Just do whatever you want.
So I was frustrated that day, and I just spat out, like, so you want to go bald? You want a head shave? And he's like, no. Okay, so I got it. So we're not doing a head shave. Okay, do you want bald on the sides, like a skin fade? And he's like, no. So eventually we figured out it was like an easy haircut, like a 3 or 4 on the sides or whatever. But that was a really powerful lesson for me to learn that day, because sometimes people don't know what they want, but almost everybody knows what they don't want. So if they don't know what they want, then ask them, well, what don't you want? And if they don't know, then you can walk them through that process like I did. Well, do you want to do a head shave? It helps if you have a little bit of rapport with that client. You can turn it into a joke. So you want to do a head shave today? No. Okay. Well, do you want a skin fade? No. Okay. Well, so you just eliminated a lot of so they want some hair on the side, and do you want the same length on the sides as the top? No. Okay, we're doing a taper. Do you want to style it a lot in the morning, or do you want something low maintenance? Or you want something low maintenance? Okay, we're probably going to go shorter. So you can use, I think it's like, I don't know if this qualifies, but it might be called inverse thinking. So instead of trying to figure out what they want, you can try to work backwards from there by asking them things that they don't want. So what don't you want? And people tend to be way better at describing what they don't want than saying what they do want. And that will just make their life a lot easier, and it'll make your life a lot easier if you know how to do both. If they don't know how to describe what they want, then you can ask them what they don't want, and then you can work backwards from there. And then, let's see. This is one of the last tips I'll give you, but using your mirror, crucial. Mirror, in my opinion, is as important of a tool as our clippers and our scissors. I mean, you can use the mirror, turn your client, especially me, I advocate turning your clients, during the haircut, so that you're standing in the same spot and you turn the chair so that it's faster. But you can use your mirror to show them, especially during a test patch, like, how's that looking so far? Because sometimes you'll have clients that don't want to talk, and you can break up the silence by doing stuff like that every now and then. You point them towards the mirror. How's that looking so far? And it also prevents you from, because some barbers turn their chair like the whole haircut, and the clients never see the mirror until the very, very end, which can work out. It's kind of like a reveal. But the problem with doing that is if the only time they see their head again is when you're completely done with the haircut, and they don't like it, or that it's not short enough, now you're going to have to do the whole thing again. So using your mirror throughout the haircut, doing those little check-ins to break the silence, and to also make sure before you go any further that they're happy with what they're seeing so far, huge, huge time saver. So you can actually do consultation throughout the haircut too. So you don't have, sometimes I'll just start with like, okay, how short do you want the sides? Okay, and we'll start there. And then when I get to the top, okay, let's talk about the top now. Because the reason I might do that is because I might forget by the time I get to that point of the haircut what they even asked for, even if I repeated it back to them. So like a lot of times I won't even ask them how they want their neckline till I get to that point, because if I ask them 20 minutes ago, 30 minutes ago, I might not even remember by the time I get to their neckline what they even asked me for. So rather than asking them again, because then they're really going to think, oh, he wasn't paying attention, won't even ask them a lot of times in the beginning, and I will just, right before I do it, I will ask them, because then it's fresh, and hopefully I won't forget, because I just asked them. So there's a lot of things that you can do the consultation throughout the haircut if you want. That's something I like to do a lot. So if a lot of barbers see this stuff, and then I'm like, nah, that's going to take a lot of time. Yeah, but you can do this throughout the haircut too. You can just start off by asking them, what do they want done? And then once you start cutting their hair, you can ask them how long it's been, what kind of products they use. You can do clarifying the check-ins throughout the haircut to make sure they're happy. And then you can just go down the list during the haircut. You don't have to do all this in the beginning. What I'm saying is you definitely want to go through as much of this stuff as possible in the beginning if it's a new client, but you can also do it throughout the haircut. So that is everything that I know about how to do consultations correctly. There's probably even some stuff that I missed, and if I did, I'll make an update to this video. Even if you do a couple of these things that I mentioned in this video, your clients will get better haircuts. Your life will be easier as a barber because you won't be doing haircuts over again. And you might even be able to take a skin fade and turn it into what would have been a 30-minute haircut into now it's just a 15-minute haircut, just because you do a little test patch and it turned out that they liked a half instead of the skin. When it comes to the skin fade, even if they ask for skin, you might be surprised that they're happy with a 0, because even for me at least, using that shaver by itself can add 10 minutes of time if they have thick hair like that. So hopefully you got something that you can use out of this video. I think that if you start doing this stuff, it'll save you time, your clients will be happier, and your life will be better as a barber. So hopefully you found that helpful. See you in the next one.